Hello, and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. Last week we talked about the wilderness, and I showed you a giant chiasm, or literary sandwich, that occurs around the Sinai narratives in the Torah. Now, some of you have asked me what that looks like in print. If you've looked at my book, if you have a copy of my book, Bearing God's Name, then you've seen a diagram that looks like this. But this is the diagram that Michael Morales provides in his book, Who Shall Ascend the Mountain of the Lord? He breaks it down more specifically, not just a frame around the Sinai narratives, but an actual chiasm where we have step-by-step things mirroring on either side of Sinai. Now, what's taken me longer to realize in my study of the Torah is that Leviticus is the center of this chiastic frame. If you've watched the Bible Project videos on Leviticus, you already know that Leviticus is a chiasm. Michael Morales describes it this way in his book. He talks about there being sanctuary laws at the beginning and end of the book, and inside of that are priestly laws, and inside of that are personal laws, and at the very center of the book of Leviticus is the laws about the Day of Atonement. Now, not only are there thematic reasons for seeing a chiasm in the book of Leviticus, but there's also a formal reason. He points out what he learned from another dissertation, and that is there are 37 divine speeches in the book of Leviticus. And sure enough, there's 18 on either side of the Day of Atonement. So there's 37 altogether, 18 plus 1 in the middle. So there is a formal and thematic chiasm. The result of that is, he says on page 28, quote, "The Day of Atonement is the literary and thematic center of the Pentateuch." So if we put together last week's giant chiasm with this chiasm that's in the middle of that chiasm, we have a central focus on the Day of Atonement. He points out that the purpose of all of the laws in Leviticus is to reestablish fellowship and union with the living God. This is not usually how we think about the book, but the rituals and laws are aimed at the possibility of entering God's presence. This is a direct response, God's direct response, to Adam and Eve's exile from the garden. They used to be able to walk and talk with God. After their rebellion, they're sent away from the garden out to the east, and there's an angelic figure guarding the way to the garden. And Leviticus makes possible the entry of humanity back into the presence of God. So Leviticus, which has the distinction of being most people's least favorite book of the Bible, is actually good news. It's the resolution to the problem of human rebellion. And it's to that focus that we're going to turn our attention in the next few weeks as we look at the individual sections of the book and see how they all contribute towards this theme. I highly recommend Morales' book. I have thoroughly enjoyed reading it. He takes us through each section of the book and shows how it all fits together as a coherent theological whole and how it's the centerpiece of biblical theology in the Torah. So I hope you'll join me again next week as we look at the first 7 chapters of the book, and I will attempt to demonstrate how these chapters of laws about sacrifice are actually good news. See you next week.